Lee, how we doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's been one of those days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How so?
Like I'm writing a song for a video that I'm shooting on Friday, and I just spent all day trying to write something, and I just wrote a bunch of trash. You know?
Yep. I know how that feels, man.
Yeah, it's hard because the holidays are coming up. I need to shoot this video on Friday, and then I'm traveling the week after that, and then it's like 2 weeks of holidays, and so I have to shoot on Friday, and so the song has to be ready by Friday, and I got a bunch of other things I got to do. So today was like my day to get like the skeleton of the song nailed down, and it just did not come together, and it's not a good time.
Well, you know, Lee, I did send you a little something, a little demo a couple days ago.
I know it's a very particular tonal. I mean, I can just tell you, I guess I'm trying to go out there with a sign that says "Sit here if you are grieving."
Oh yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's been so hard, because it's such a bold thing to put on a sign.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have so much responsibility to like really say something via music to whoever sits down with me that is valuable. And, you know, it's just a narrow line to walk, and I've second guessed even doing it as I've tried to write the song. But I wrote a song about grief like 3 years ago that has been really special to me, but I've never really felt like it was the right time to put it out. Mm-hmm. And I've really wanted to put it out close to the holidays, and I felt like this was a great concept for it, but I felt like the lyrics weren't perfect for, like I was just saying, delivering them straight to somebody who, you know, is in need. And so I've been trying to rework the lyrics, and I'm just I'm just too close to it. I can't like see it anymore. And I'm just kind of swimming around in the dark, and I don't even know where I'm at anymore, you know?
Yeah, I hear you, man. Well, let me take your mind off of such serious things here.
Yeah, please.
Are you up? Sorry, my camera's moving. Are you aware of the recent Hollywood drama between Quentin Tarantino and Paul Dano?
I'm not.
So there's like a little, I don't know if you'd call it a Twitter beef, because it was very one-sided, but Quentin Tarantino just came out with like some sort of like kind of intense criticisms of Paul Dano, saying that he's like a really weak actor and just an uninteresting person, and just this kind of like weirdly aggressive stuff about Paul Dano. And for those of you who don't know who Paul Dano is, he was in a Batman movie recently. He was the Riddler in Batman. He was in There Will Be Blood, which I know you watched recently, Lee. But anyway, so the internet has been kind of coming to Paul Dano's defense, which I think is kind of great, and I think he deserves it. Like, I consider myself a Tarantino fan, but it's not a great look just to kind of single someone out. So here's what I thought we'd do today, Lee. Since Quentin Tarantino is out there judging people, here's what we're going to do. We're going to judge the filmography of Quentin Tarantino, all right?
Okay.
So here's the movies I want us to consider. We got Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, and let's throw Kill Bill in there as well.
Okay.
So we got 4 Tarantino movies. Let's start with this. What is your favorite? Oh, no, let's do a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood instead of Kill Bill.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this, Lee. What is your favorite of those 4 Tarantino movies?
Tough call, but it's Django.
Is it really?
Yeah, I love Django so much.
Why do you think it is? What is it about that movie that sets it apart?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. So, Christoph Waltz is one of my favorite actors in the world, and I've only ever seen him really in 2 movies, and it's Django and Inglourious Bastards. But his characters in those 2 movies are like some of my all-time favorites. And then next to that, my favorite actor is Leo. And so Django gives you Christoph Waltz as the good guy, which is rare. And I love him so much. I love being able to root for him. And then it also gives you Leo in one of his absolute best performances and one of the best cast performances. Like, he's played a lot. He's given a lot of great performances, but that character, I think, is so good for him. Like, you just let him shine the full scope of his abilities with that character. And then on top of those two, like, giants, then you also get Samuel L. giving the performance of a lifetime, and Jamie Foxx can he's like a Swiss Army knife. He can do anything. So yeah, I love Inglourious Bastards, and it's a really close second, but yeah, Django is my fave.
Yeah, what I think about with Django is I think it's the, for lack of a better term, scariest of all of them. It's the movie where the stakes to me feel the highest when I watch it. Like, the scenes in that about the brutality of, you know, what was happening in America at the time really feel visceral and real to me. And that's like refreshing as an adult to feel fear, like real fear and intimidation. And I don't necessarily like feel that with Inglourious Bastards, right? Like, Inglourious Bastards is such a fairy tale,
right? And
feels a little bit too disconnected from real world events that it's more of kind of a jaunt. It's more of a romp,
right?
Whereas Django, if I watch it, I go through a lot just by watching humans experience terrible things.
Totally, yeah, and. Yeah, that's so true. And I'm even thinking through like Pulp Fiction and the other one. Like, I think for when it comes to Tarantino films, because he will just draw things out for so long, which I love, but, you know, he has long scenes of like long dialogue. I just love, to me, it brings the characters into the absolute forefront of everything. And so yeah, it's almost like watching, like, if you had to just pick like your favorite video game character just to like watch go through the world, like if you could watch Mario just because you enjoy the aesthetics of Mario, you know, like I just enjoy watching Leo just go off. And I think I enjoy a little bit less watching someone like Bruce Willis go and, like, you know, flex their muscles. I think he did great and I love Bruce Willis, but like, I'm just for whatever reason partial to like Leo, Christoph Waltz, Samuel L., you know, people like that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think about with Tarantino? There's such a difference between his early movies and his, you know, more recent work. It's interesting to watch it go from whatever, you can't really pigeonhole, you know, movies like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs into a category. But with things like Django and Inglourious Bastards, you really get this sort of like historical, I don't want to call it like revisionism, but you get these, and you know, same thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They're about our past,
right? And
kind of reckoning with foundational aspects of American culture.
Right.
Like, how did that grow from something like Pulp Fiction?
I mean, I don't know. I think it was just, he just got interested in that. He probably was just drawn to, you know, reimagining moments in history as opposed to just creating like a story from nothing.
Yeah. Have you heard him talk much? Have you heard like interviews with Tarantino?
I've seen a clip or two, but like I've always wanted to, but I know I haven't like really, you know, listened to a full conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very singular personality. Like, even just the way he speaks and his voice and his mannerisms, you really get the sense of like, I don't know what the term is, just kind of an iconic personality. And like the drama with Paul Dano, it's not totally surprising. Like, you get the sense that he's a little bit of a dick, right?
Yeah, and he's like a little bit like completely out of touch with himself and reality of just a hair, you know?
Yeah. And that there's, you know, his success has been sustained and, you know, on a wide enough scale that you know, how many of us are still really great people when most of the people that we interact with treat us as, you know,
as a god,
the demigods.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
But for me personally, I wouldn't put Django as my top movie. I think Tarantino is really at his best. My personal favorite is Pulp Fiction, which I think is, you know, probably kind of a stock pick. But there's something about the low budget, what he did with the small amount that he had to do it with. I think that I could probably watch Pulp Fiction once a month and enjoy it every time. I think with movies like Django and I think the newer ones, they're so explicit in what they are and what they're about that you can't read as much of yourself into it, if that makes sense. Whereas with Pulp Fiction, you got to like study it to try and guess what is going on, you know?
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Like in Pulp Fiction, there's a briefcase with something shining gold in it that is never explained what it is. And it's like it is the crux of the film. It's like the plot revolves around this briefcase and you never know what's in it, you know?
Right.
And I like that. I like that I can spend the next week imagining what that might be.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's like the difference between The Wizard of Oz and Wicked, where like The Wizard of Oz was a world that was birthed from, you know, the creators of that show and that movie and that book from nothing. And then Wicked is a story that someone built inside of that pre-existing world. And when Tarantino builds worlds from nothing, yeah, it's extremely deep. And when he creates stories inside of existing worlds, he still flexes his muscles, but I see what you mean, that there's a little bit less depth, you know, just because there can't be as much depth because he's working within the confines of like what historically happened.
Yeah, and they were just like Pulp Fiction. Have you ever seen Reservoir Dogs?
Yeah.
There's scenes in them where there are conversations happening completely separate from the narrative of the story, right? It's like the conversation about foot massages in Pulp Fiction or in Reservoir Dogs. There's a whole argument that happens in a restaurant about whether or not you should tip people. And I love that about his writing. Whenever I go to see a Tarantino movie, I'm always excited just for the sort of like little details of weird conversations that happen.
Yeah.
And I think in movies like, you know, the Django and Inglourious Bastards, because these are real, you know, not real, but they're like people grounded in the reality of history. It's like there's not as much playfulness in that way. Maybe is the way to put it.
Yeah.
And you kind of got to like deal with, all right, this is World War II, and whereas in those others, it's just people in their lives talking about something that just happens to come up.
Right.
And I think that's what makes his style of dialogue and writing really distinct and interesting. And while I love all of the movies we've talked about, I think that's why I'd lean towards those kind of older, more stripped back ones.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I think the level of personality within the specific characters, I think, has become more bombastic as he's matured. Like the vividness and the brightness of color that comes out of Leonardo DiCaprio when he's playing Mr. Candy, I think is brighter. And, you know, maybe this isn't true. Maybe people would disagree, but to me, it's brighter than John Travolta, the color that comes out of John Travolta, just because, I don't know, that character is just more of a cartoon. You know, he's totally, you know what I mean? So there's probably like two things happening at once there.
Yeah, and I think with his movies, there's a distinct difference between the movies that I enjoy most and those that I think are like the best works of like literature. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think of all of his films, the movie I sit down and enjoy watching the most is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, that movie is like an ASMR experience for me.
Interesting.
But I think it's probably one of his, I don't know, as a I don't know, something to sink your teeth into. I think it's probably one of the sort of shallowest.
Right.
It's kind of pure fun. It's just, and I think that's, so in terms of what do I think is the greatest film, I would probably take Pulp Fiction. What do I love to watch the most? I think it'd be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's such a acquired taste, that it's particularly hard to have any kind of objective take on it,
Yeah, and I don't know if you had heard this, but Tarantino's been talking about how he's only going to make 10 films.
Yeah.
And he's on his 10th now.
Right.
And my understanding is it was originally going to be called The Critic, starring Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah, I heard that too.
And I believe it has been sort of scuttled. I don't think it's going to be, I think it's it sort of entered production and then was taken out of production.
Wow.
And I've heard a lot of people talking about how they think that because this is supposedly his last film, it's kind of a self-imposed limit that is hurting it in a way, that he's putting all this pressure for this to be his last film.
Right.
And so he's not just making a movie, he's like trying to make this opus that might not ever actually get made.
Dang. That's crazy.
But let me ask you this, Lee. Let me ask you this. Now that you know that there is beef between Tarantino and Dano, looking back on watching There Will Be Blood, what did you think of Dano's performance as the preacher in There Will Be Blood?
I mean, I thought he was great. He's very young in that movie, so I don't know. Especially contrasted with Daniel Day-Lewis, I thought he was perfect. I mean, he's like, he, I think, embodied like the inner conflict really well. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any complaints. I felt like the whole movie was just so, painful in a good way. He was definitely like a big part of that feeling,
As a Christian yourself, what did you think of the portrayal of kind of like mid-American, like early 20th century Christianity in a small isolated town?
Yeah,
what did it make you feel?
It was heartbreaking. It was really, really sad. And when you see like a picture of what is supposed to be the most pure thing being twisted and manipulated in a malevolent kind of way, it's heartbreaking. It's like the most fundamental kind of heartbreak, because it's the thing that's supposed to provide hope and light through malevolence is now being tainted with malevolence. And and it also was a good picture of like how deeply flawed every person is, regardless of their status within whatever it is, a religious organization or whatever kind of like influence or admiration they have from people around them. They'll never escape, the temptation. And that's heartbreaking,
Yeah, I'm interested to hear you talk about that movie a little bit, because it's a movie that has kind of entered the canon of of American films that is considered a masterpiece. And I think you can come away from it with such different impressions, and we won't hang on it too long, but I'm just curious, coming away from that movie, can you just summarize what you felt about it? Why did you think that movie was made? What was it about?
That's such a good question. And I watched it with Jack, and Jack is in our band when we tour, but we had a long conversation after it ended, because I was like shocked that it ended where it ended.
It's a disturbing ending.
Yes, I thought that we were going to have an entire additional like 20 minutes of wrapping things up, and then it would end. And I was just so shocked. and we were talking about it, and I was telling him, like, I think that I rarely see a movie that kind of has like a moral or an overall message that is as, I don't know how you would say it, like anti-romantic as like that.
Bleak.
It's not just that it's bleak, but it's like typically, like if you imagine a movie like The Departed, right? The Departed has, like, it's not a happy ending, it's not a hopeful ending, but you have like 3 or 4 different storylines that are happening throughout the movie. They are all weaving in and out. And there's all this suspense, there's all this rise and fall, and then at the end, all of the storylines converge. And it's like this very satisfying conclusion, and you feel in your body like a symphony that has different counter melodies, all kind of, you know, creates suspense or tension, and then resolves, and the piece ends. And with There Will Be Blood, it felt like it was just one held note the entire movie, and then that note just stopped, and then the movie was over. It's like there was no interweaving of different storylines. There was no twist. There's no twist in the whole movie. It's just one thing. You watch that one thing happen all the way until its very end, and then the movie is over. And I was waiting for the twist, you know?
Yeah.
And there's something about that was like very unsatisfying and jarring and kind of upset me. But then, you know, the more I kind of sat with that really uncomfortable and disturbed feeling, I was like, oh yeah, that's what actual tragedy is like in life. Like, that's what, like, life doesn't have this perfect counter melody that reaches a perfect resolution. It has just this like hard, terrible, twisted thing that happens for a while, and then it ends, and it doesn't get resolved, and it sucks, and you just have to eat that. And that's what the movie was, and I kind of hated that. Like, I hated the way I felt afterwards. But I appreciated the, like, that's a real, that's art, you know, that's real art when it mimics life to the point where it's like really painful.
Yeah, I think that's put really well. I heard someone describe Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, who is the director of There Will Be Blood, in a way that really encapsulated his work in such a way that I was able to enjoy it more. And he's become my favorite director as a result of this sort of like summary, which is that watching his movies is like looking at like an open wound.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
It's like looking at tattered skin and broken bones and just dealing with it.
Right.
And like you were saying earlier, it's almost like you're living through this experience of the real world in a way that it's not that you're enjoying it necessarily, or that you're going to learn a nice little neat lesson from, but it's like you're going to gain some sort of life experience by witnessing this ugly side of existence, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I can't articulate it, but I feel like I've experienced this in other forms of art too. Like, there are certain pieces of music that are kind of like this, where it's just one thing, and then that one thing ends, and that's it. I don't know how else to put it. Like, there's really no, not just that there's no conclusion, but there's no like beginning and middle. It's just one thing, and then that thing stops, and that's the art. And yeah, it's so uncomfortable, and an open wound is exactly what it feels like. It's and it's like that, you know. It's like things that have a tragic end, right? It's like, if you can imagine, because most movies are about, like, just as a random example, imagine somebody goes on a hike, and they are alone. They're just going on a simple hike by themselves. They fall, they break their ankle, and they can't really walk, but somehow they go through this like heroic story of finding their way back out, and then they live to tell the tale. And Paul Thomas Anderson is like, no, you go for the hike, you break your ankle, you trudge through misery for like 3 days, and then you die alone on a mountain. And that's the movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what that would actually be like. It would be like, you know, the exposition, the movie starts, then you have the rising action, the ankle breaks, and then struggle, die, end. That's what it would actually be like. And and yeah, you rarely see that. And who wants to see that? You know?
Right. Yeah.
But somehow when you watch it, you're like, damn it, like that was important for some reason. You know?
Yeah, and when you're talking about the movie just being one thing, I think in There Will Be Blood, it's the drive of the main character. It's
right.
It's just the internal and like almost inhuman drive forward of the Daniel Day-Lewis character.
Yeah.
Where like everything in his way, he discards. Everything that would like link him to humanity, like his son, you know, it all falls away. And at the end, he's just this shell of success.
Yeah. Right.
Like alone in a bowling alley in his house. He's a monster. He truly just becomes this like hideous monster. Well, anyway, Lee, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about that movie specifically is, and this might be kind of a violent transition into something totally different, but I've been nibbling around the edges of asking you more about your experience with spirituality. Mm-hmm. And it's something I find really interesting about you, and it always has been really interesting to me since it started, because I knew you before you became Christian. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, you know, we don't have to go too crazy, but I wondered if maybe today you could just describe your experience becoming Christian. Would you be into that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. To put it concisely, and we touched on this, you know, at a previous episode, but I was living in Nashville. I was like 19, and my, you know, not too dissimilar from Daniel Day-Lewis and There Will Be Blood, but I was very singularly focused on becoming a successful artist, and I was very kind of singularly motivated by that, and that kind of informed all other decisions in my life and how I operated. And I think it got to like it came to a head when I don't know, just I think the continued life experience with such a singular and imbalanced motivation, meaning like I had no other things that I truly valued in life to kind of like put me into balance. I just became increasingly like anxious and isolated, and I guess the word would be like unstable. When I experienced setbacks in whatever I perceived as a setback in my pursuit of like my music career, I would just be reeling in a really, really bad way. And I dealt with health issues that could have been you know, at least partly a side effect of that like mindset that I was constantly in, which is just a lot of stress and anxiety and pressure and not a lot of community, like not a lot of human to human contact, like a lot of me grinding alone. Anyway, and yeah, I was just introduced to the idea that through, you know, the concept of Christianity, which I didn't know anything about. That like maybe life, maybe your motivation and the thing that drives you should be about self-sacrifice and the service of others. And, maybe it should be about like becoming the kind of person who can withstand setbacks. And a part of what it takes to be that person is to surrender the things that you desire the most in life. And from an emotional perspective, like to surrender your grip on them from an emotional perspective. And I really resonated with the kind of diagnosis of somebody that was truly like motivated by one thing, which was basically for me material success. The diagnosis that thing now has complete control over me. In the I think metaphor often given in Christianity is that I'm a slave to that thing, and so if things go well for that thing, I'm riding on a high, and if things go bad for that thing, I'm super low. And I really am not my own. I belong to that pursuit, and I'm just beholden to the ups and downs, and I have no control. And I was really saw myself in that story and didn't want that anymore. Yeah, and then I had like a religious experience that happened to me. I was alone in my room in Nashville where I was living, and I had a long night of prayer because I was going through just this weird undiagnosed, I guess you can call it an illness. It felt like an autoimmune. It never got diagnosed, but it was just intense.
Yeah, I remember you would basically go from being like symptoms of a head cold to like severe reactions to food.
Yeah.
And like being to the point where like we essentially couldn't hang out. It was like, yeah, dude, I would love to work on something, but like I can't leave the house.
Yeah. It was kind of like that. It like the head cold is a good phrase. Like I would have this constant, it's like the feeling that you have when you have a fever, but you don't fully have a fever. Like it is that thing of like a little bit of chills, a little bit of like, and maybe I just had a low grade fever all the time. Like maybe that's what it was. I don't think I took my temperature all that often, but yeah, it was like lightheadedness, intense fatigue, excessive thirst. I was so thirsty all the time, and like really intense, just brain fog. And I mean, fatigue was the thing. I felt like I could just sleep forever. And yeah, so I really just wanted to escape that physical condition, and so I was desperately praying for a long night, and I fell asleep, and then I woke up the next day and everything was the same, and I was just going about my life, and it was like I wasn't really even thinking about prayer or anything. I was just kind of frustrated with like the fact that I still felt like garbage, and I was just in my room, and I just suddenly, out of nowhere, it was, how they say, like, I don't know, the whole room fell away. It's like when you fall in love with somebody and like the whole world falls away and it's just you and that person. It was like the whole room kind of just shifted. I just instantly started crying, and I just, in a way that I can't, there's no physical or literal explanation for. I just knew that Jesus had walked into my room, and that was it. It wasn't like I had to think like, oh, what's happening? Oh, maybe this is like because I prayed, or maybe this is like this Jesus person I've been like talking to or reading about. It was just instantly I was like, oh, Jesus, like it was a simultaneous knowing that that was what was happening. And yeah, I just cried for a really long time, and I was crying because like if I had to put words to the reason why I was crying, it was because I couldn't believe that he would like be around me. I'm gonna not cry right now. It's definitely what I'm not gonna do. But I just felt so unworthy. It's like if you can imagine, I don't know, like doing something terrible to your family, and maybe you get like put in prison or something crazy, and then like your father, who you have wronged in every way, like comes and visits you and is kind to you, and you're like, I don't deserve this. It even though I didn't really feel like I had done horrible things, but that was the feeling. It was like, I can't believe you would come and stand next to me. Yeah, and so since then it's kind of just been a lock. Like since then it's like, all right, this is it. Yeah.
How do you think now? How do you think about your life before that moment? Or maybe not, I know you described a lot of it in the, maybe year or two before that, but how do you think of like your childhood and your growing up in your family and in high school and everything? How do you think of that in relationship to the experience you just described?
Well, I was still, I'm still the same. I'm still that person. I changed a lot. I changed dramatically after that experience. Yeah, I mean, I think I consider my childhood and my, high school and my late teen years as very innocent. I was finding my way just like everybody does. I think that, yeah, I would say this at the time too. I remember having conversations when I would get into kind of like deeper conversations with friends or family. I would talk about how like, yo, my singular pillar in life is my music career. Like if I didn't have that, I would be literally lost in the dark. Like, yeah. And so that I think defined me through and through. And yeah, I'm just the person that I would be at any point in my life if that was my, the sole definition of who I am. And I think that's just, it's really hard to navigate the complexities and multi-dimensional nature of life when your motives and your self-image and your identity is so one-dimensional. Yeah. So
I remember you going through that, and when I think about the timeline of our musical experience together, that was real in more than just a religious way, a real turning point. Since then, if you look at what's happened before and after, it's very different in terms of just the career of you and our band. You know what I mean?
How so? Like, how would you say that?
Well, like your life changed. It probably had to do with as much as like suddenly you got married and had a kid.
Yeah, that happened like within a year and a half, after the whole thing.
It brings in a whole level of pragmatism about having a music career that probably wasn't there before. Whereas like we got to get on it. Yeah. And that was essentially the impetus of you getting into social media. And then the rest is what it was, But from a selfish perspective, it was also very exciting for me because I really like having friends who have different opinions because it means I get to argue with them, right?
Right.
So from a selfish perspective, it's been great because it's so much more fun to, for me, like having a clash of ideas is like, it's like playing basketball.
Right.
It's really fun. And it's so much more interesting than just sitting around and everyone agreeing on everything. So in the future, Lee, I want to ask you more about that. And sometimes it's difficult because it's more personal to you than it is to me. Like I've had this experience with my mom before, which is my mom has what I would essentially consider to be kind of spiritual beliefs that for me, it's really fun to pick at them and like, well, what about this? And what about that? And many times I've kind of crossed this line where I realize like, this isn't fun. I'm the only one having fun in this scenario. Right. So I'm trying to get better at like being aware of that boundary, but I think it'll be fun in the future to just talk about things from the lens that you've just described, which is as from a Christian one, as a non-Christian myself.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've experienced many of what you're talking about, not in the sense that like you've crossed any line, but like I also, as you know, love to spar with ideas, and it just so happens that the more personal the subject matter is, the more fiery that sparring can become. Yeah. Which is probably, in terms of like entertainment, pretty fun to watch, but is also quite vulnerable,
Totally. And it's just an interesting thing to have in the background at a time in which like the world is changing. Like, how do you, like, this is something we don't have to talk about today, but it's like, okay, maybe your computer is now conscious. How do you think about, what does that mean for your belief system? Or
Right.
maybe suddenly there are aliens that, on Mars, how does, we're just living in a time where all of us, whether you're religious or not, the foundations of what you believe are being poked at just by, the course of humanity.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have wrestled a lot of these questions that you're talking about into like to their end. And so it's almost like, when you pose a question like, if they're aliens or like something like that, in my head, or, if I can imagine the reverse thing where I'm kind of poking at you, like, well, where does your sense of morality come from? Like, or all the different kind of classic atheist versus religious person little debate points. Like, yeah. I just know the entire route from that question to the point where you're like, okay, well, you think this and I think this. And so as soon as you ask the question, I kind of know all the way where, like, the bottom of the barrel. Which, I don't know, can still be fun to go down the path. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm less likely to poke at you in that same way because I feel like I already know, Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. And maybe I totally don't. Maybe, and that's probably my mistake. It's like I don't know, if you look at the history of like mathematics or something, and somebody has posed a question in the past, and then that question has been picked apart by the entire, history of human beings that have participated in the science of mathematics or whatever. And so you can pose that same question yourself and find it to be original or like, kind of tackle it yourself. But like the human race has already done that. And they've already taken it down to its end, and you can just go find it. Like it's already there.
Yeah.
And I think that way with a lot of these questions. But maybe it's not exactly the same when you're not talking about numbers, you're talking about things that are a lot more, I don't know, open-ended.
We'll just have to find out, baby.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, dude, it's been fun. I'll catch you next time. Join us on the Discord. Comment on our YouTube videos. Leave us a podcast review. Lee, peace out.
Peace. Yoink.